10 things I need to talk to Shelley about, so I emailed her on the side. So
Yeah.
you all didn't
like,
know that I was coming.
No, I'm like, oh no, like I only heard from two people.
How are you, Les?
I'm a little stressed, but I'm here now. I literally don't even know if my daughter got out of the car before I pulled back out of the driveway. So we had dance until 6, so I was like, we gotta go.
Okay, well, calm down.
It's all good. It's all good.
I want to do a little briefing, which is the first item on our agenda.
Where is, do I have a copy? I don't have a copy. Okay. You said.
She's like a dynamite.
I know, she's not.
So do I just read their names and then they introduce themselves? Okay. Okay.
Before you start, what I want to talk about is, this one's going to be held first, and it'll be public hearing. I want to do my briefing of this case first.
So do I do that before I open the public hearing?
Yes.
Okay.
And it'll be the same thing on this. And then, in the way she's got it set up, you'll do, after the public hearings are both closed, then you'll consider, and you'll consider.
So we hold both hearings before we talk about it.
Which is a little different.
Do I let Ryan talk first, or do I let these people talk first?
If it was Mike Coker, I would let all the citizens who are in the comments talk first.
Okay. So let you talk, open the hearing, let the citizens talk. Do I let Ryan talk while the hearing is still open?
He is here to represent the applicant, and they say yes. This one right here is just a little briefing. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the negotiation process, about why you can do what I'm asking you to do, which is to make a recommendation to amend the comprehensive plan if you want to do that, and to make a recommendation for a new zoning district if you want to do that. And because this is not necessary. And it won't be until tomorrow if the council decides yes.
So you're gonna have a briefing for this as well?
That's right. And it's only 3 minutes.
Okay. Okay. Isn't it ready? Sorry,
I
guys.
guess we should probably
I
call it.
warned her I wasn't gonna be this so sorry. Is everybody ready? Okay. Lisa, are you ready? Okay. All right.
Probably not.
I got 2. Oh, good. I got 2.
That's on. You got 2. Good job.
All right, I will call the meeting to order. We'll begin with an invocation.
Yeah, you just need to lean in close. Yeah. Is it? Try the other one. I think you have to push to talk. Or push to lock.
Okay, I'm going to start with an invocation. If you please bow your head. Dear God, we pray that you will bless and guide us through this meeting. Help us have productive discussions that will broaden our perspectives. Help us to resolve any disputes gracefully and find principles that we may agree on. Help us generate good plans that are practical, sustainable, and easily implemented. Guide us toward the best way to take action to accomplish our goals. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
All right, if you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, we'll start with the U.S. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. On the Texas flag, I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Lots more.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is citizen comments. So I'm going to open for citizen comments, but I want to make it clear if you're here to speak for the public hearing, I'm going to call on you when I open the public hearing. So if you've signed up to speak during the public hearing, we don't need to hear from you right now, but I do want to open it for any general citizen comments right now. So is there anyone that wants to just speak during general citizen comments? Okay. Then we will move on to the next item of agenda, which is item 4.1, approval of the August 20th, 2020 regular meeting minutes. Did everyone have a chance to take a look at those? Does anyone have any corrections or additions to the minutes? Okay, can I get a motion to approve those as written?
I motion we approve the August 2020 meeting minutes as written.
Okay, a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, approved. The next item, 4.2, the October 15th meeting minutes. Did everyone have a chance to take a look at those? Okay, do we have any additions or corrections to those as they're printed? Okay, can I get a motion for approval, please? Okay, second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Okay. The next item, 4.3, is the December 10th, 2020 joint session we had with the Planning and Zoning and Economic Development Committee meeting. The minutes from that work session. Do I have any discussion on those? Okay, can I get a motion for our approval of those?
Yes, I need to add my name to it.
Oh,
I need to add my name to the part.
the December 10th?
Then can I get a motion for approval as corrected?
Make a motion to approve the
December 10th,
December 10th minutes.
as correct.
As corrected.
I second?
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Okay, we will then move on to item 5, which is a report from Mr. Coker regarding the request for annexation of 90.1 acres, more or less currently within the McLendon-Chisholm ETJ. Mr. Coker, I believe you have a brief presentation just to explain that process and what we need to discuss.
This is a survey of 90.1 acres that are currently in the extraterritorial jurisdiction of the city of McLendon-Chisholm. Full notice here, Sinks Road, which is actually the private driveway leading to the Sinks property is back in here. That this 90 acres has been requested by Ricky Dickerson, who is the owner, who brought it into the city. And so, in order for us to do that, that's a city council obligation, and that's on the hearing that they have to do now. One of the things that we wanted to make sure that you had the opportunity to deal with was the potential conflict between the comprehensive plan where it requires a minimum of an acre and a half. And I can show you this is what the applicant is proposing. This subdivision is pulling down here, sinks here, and this is the entire park, not just the 90 acres, but all of it. These are 1 acre houses. The comprehensive plan currently says that this top down in rural residential, which is really 2.5 acre lots. Comprehensive plan text also says that low density to be 1.5 acres. As a result of that, this would not comply. State law requires that zoning comply with the comprehensive plan. So, in the next couple of cases that you're going to hear, the first public hearing is going to be a public hearing to consider a change to the comprehensive plan. I'm trying to give you a briefing in advance of what you said. The second thing, the second public hearing will be a request for a county development district that will authorize 134 single-family residential lots. Remember that in order for the city council to take action on the recommendation for you, you need to recommend your approval or denial of approval of conditions or whatever you want to do in both of these cases. Changing the comprehensive plan requires a request, a recommendation from you. Changing the future land use map requires a recommendation agree with the applicant and you change the comprehensive plan, and you change the future land use map, and you recommend approval of the zone. But the council doesn't effect the annexation plan. Then all that's in there is just doesn't exist. Right? I'm going to show you the draft.
And oh, yeah. Oh. Oh.
All right, so Pulling road is here. City road is here. Land is here. This 98 is the only way. So that's what the annexation map looks like. And over here.
I'm okay, but yeah, why don't you set it off to the side maybe, or?
Mr. Coker, could you define where Savannah is? I know where Simpson, I know where Fulham are on the map, but Savannah, I have no idea. Yeah, it's probably is.
Yeah, that'd probably be good.
Okay. We'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is to hold a public hearing to consider amending the future land use map of the comprehensive plan to change the land use designation from rural residential to a new classification to be known as low-density residential for a 164.591 acre tract of land located generally at the southwest corner of Pullen Road and Sinks Road. Approximately 90.1 acres, more or less, are located within the McLendon-Chisholm ETJ, with the remainder located within the city limits. And Mr. Coker, you indicated you'd like to speak before I open the hearing formally.
Yes, ma'am. Once again, this is a request for an amendment to the comprehensive plan that would modify the low-density definition from 1.5 acre lots to 1 acre lots, and would also change the designation on the future land use map for the entirety of the 164 acres that is the subject of this request to low-density residential. So that's really the issue here. The future land use map and the future land use component of the comprehensive plan requires that zoning conform to the comprehensive plan. So if it's the recommendation of the commission to change the comprehensive plan and the future land use element and map to change it from 1.5 acres to 1 acre, then that's the recommendation that would go to the city council. And with that, ma'am, I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
I think it's best if we open the hearing and then we'll have discussion after we've had the hearing.
Yes, ma'am.
So with that, I'm going to open the hearing, and I have a list of people that have indicated to the secretary that they'd like to speak, so I'm going to start with that list of people. And so I will read your name, and if you come to the podium and repeat your name and then give your address so the secretary can record it. And all comments are limited to 5 minutes, and I assume someone, do I have to keep track of time? Okay, I can do that. And so we'll go through this list, and then I guess if there's anyone else, maybe let Shelley know that you'd like to speak if you haven't done so yet. But with that, I will go ahead and open the hearing. item 6.1 on the agenda. Our first speaker is Lisa Rainey. If you come up to the podium. Okay. Is that okay?
That's fine.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Chris Burleson. I'm at 825 Fulham Road, and I just wanted to start off by reading some portions of the comprehensive plan that provides some further context for consideration and discussion here.
There you go.
Alrighty. All right, so on page 5.1, Goal A, it's set to be amended by the draft ordinance, but I just wanted to read it anyway. It says to preserve the rural character of the city by ensuring single-family developments have a maximum residential density of 1 residential unit for every 1.5 acres of gross land area. Goal D also says preserve the rural character by maintaining a balance between the expanding urban area and the rural nature of the community. Goal E says to ensure housing development is compatible with existing and adjacent land uses and has access to community features and natural resources. Policy 1 below that, I believe, is scheduled to be amended by the ordinance, but it says existing agricultural resources should be preserved whenever possible, and the land's currently zoned in ag. Number 2 is new residential construction shall reflect the low-density housing of the existing community, which is 1.5 acres at minimum or 2.5 acres in the current city zoning. Number 3 is low-density residential developments are required to provide a maximum of 1 residential unit for every 1.5 acres of land, which may not include easements, etc. Number 7 is to protect low-density and rural residential areas from incompatible or higher-intensity residential and commercial uses, etc. If you flip to page 7.1 describing open space of the comprehensive plan, policy A says to encourage developers and property owners to include open space within new developments at the time of zoning or subdivision. As you can see from the plan, there's not much open space. Policy E says given the rural nature of McLendon-Chisholm and continuing focus on larger lot developments in large estates, property owners and developers should provide recreational facilities, including parks and open space and other amenities to the communities they develop. In many parts of the city, the openness and unrestricted vistas are important resources for the citizens. F is McLendon-Chisholm consistently reinforces the maintenance of a high quality of life in the city. Further, the community places a high priority on the maintenance of property values and the desire to maintain a rural atmosphere that restricts urbanization, that is, more densely populated community. Page 8.1, Community Design Standards, under residential heading, says residential subdivision design should include curvilinear streets rather than being designed in a grid pattern, and the grid pattern is what we have on the proposed plan. So it's 1 main street with 3 straight streets right off of it. 9.2 of the plan, the second paragraph, says a significant portion of the future land use map recommends single-family detached housing located on lots that are 1.5 acres or larger, including farms and ranches. While not shown on the future land use map as a future land use, there is strong support for the continuation of ag uses that have been and are located within the corporate limits. So those are just some comments for some further context. Can you guys answer questions that I ask as well?
No, we cannot.
Okay. So a few questions then to ponder and think about as you consider whether a recommendation would be prudent at this meeting or to table it or consider some changes. So number 1, are there any reasons why the property cannot be used in conformance with present zoning, which would allow for developments of lots of at least 1.5 acres? So obviously property owners can sell it and develop it on 1.5 acres or more. So is there any reason why they can't do that in the instant case? Number 2, are there any change conditions which would justify a change in zoning in contravention of the pre-established comprehensive plan and future land use map? Number 3, is a zoning change being requested so that the property owners may be treated preferentially to realize a higher profit than allowed under the present zoning and pre-established comprehensive plan. Number 4, could the zoning change be characterized as piecemeal zoning, which the Texas Supreme Court has described as illegal spot zoning? Number 5, is there any mixed use or other use which would justify a planned development district zoning in accordance with the code, or could the proposals be perceived as abusive simply to develop smaller lots than are currently required? Number 6, does the need to 1, alter the comprehensive plan and future land use map, 2, change the current zoning, and 3, designate a new 1-acre low-density zoning district for the entire city seem reasonable, or does it seem like arbitrary preferential treatment of the applicant and the landowners? Because I think the draft ordinance actually would change the entire city's low-density residential to 1 acre, if I was reading that right, whereas the notice looks like it's just applicable to this 165 acres. So, just stuck out to me. Number 7, has adequate public notice been given, and would an ordinary person understand from reading the notice that the city intends to reduce low-density residential minimum lot size for the entire city to only 1 acre going forward? Because that affects a lot of people who may want to show up here and have their voices heard. It's not just us on Pullen Road and Sinks Road and Savannah Hill. Number 8, would many of these issues be more appropriately addressed in the upcoming comprehensive plan and future land use map updates that are currently being pursued by the city? And why consider such sweeping changes which may invite litigation beforehand before hearing from the whole community to change the plan and the future land use map? Number 9, could going to such lengths without changed circumstances subject the city to potential spot zoning, due process, or other zoning abuse claims? So I know that's a mouthful and a lot to digest and take in. Quick summary and then I'm done. There are no changed circumstances that I know of that warrant such drastic measures, and the current zoning is adequate for development on slightly larger lots of 1.5 acres or more, which is preserving the whole comprehensive plan of the rural character of the community. Number 2, going to such great lengths favors a few individuals to the detriment of the entire community and subjects the city to unnecessary legal challenges, potentially. Number 3, adequate public notice has not been given and new notice should be given, which clearly indicates the citywide scope of the proposal for the new low-density 1-acre future land use map zoning. Number 4, in light of the above, the committee and the council shouldn't recommend or approve the proposals and should consider such sweeping changes to the plan and future land use map only after adequate public notice and feedback as entirely separate and distinct matters from the proposed development at hand. Otherwise, spot zoning, due process, or other zoning abuse claims may be brought against and entangle the city in unnecessary litigation as a result. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Madam Chair, let me go take the annexation map off, have access to the proposed
Okay.
subdivision layout. It'll make it easier for you all. You're still not going to be able to see it.
Up next, if you want to get ready, is Mr. Peter Barger. I'll give Mr. Coker just a second.
Hello, my name is Peter Barter. I live at 173 Savannah Hill Lane, and I am speaking in opposition to the motion. I'd like to point out just a couple of things to begin with for the secretary. I have here, not previously submitted to the city, other people who are in the area who have requested that they be put on notice as saying not in favor. In addition to that, I have a letter that was circulated in the community that was affected by this. It has several points on it, which I'll read to you in brief, but I would like to point out to you that there are 57 families, 57 property owners and residents who have signed this agreement, signed this letter, and we would like this, along with the notice, the notices be written into your minutes as the community's objections to this particular plan development. So I can give this to you. But before I do that, let me just read. Yeah, if you give me a second, I just want to read something over here. So essentially what we're objecting to is not growth. I want to be very clear about this. We in the community recognize that growth is something that not only is good for the community, but is inevitable. However, this particular growth that we're talking about is completely against the planned use that we've already had in the city of McLendon-Chisholm. As Chris already mentioned to you, the comprehensive plan, incidentally, Mr. Coker, you wrote this very nice plan, says that the city values rural and that the minimum size that we will expect of that is 1.5 acres. Now, there isn't any way that we can make a case for that to be a need in the market because there are all other properties available within the city of McLendon-Chisholm, Sonoma Verde, other properties that have been already brought into the city as planned developments that have smaller density housing permitted. And those housing projects are not full. There isn't any reason for that to be necessary. And in fact, the city ordinance says that the planned development zoning is specifically not to be used to circumvent the size of the lot. That it must be for a purpose that has to take advantage of something that the community can benefit from. Mixed use, some special circumstances, perhaps parks that are involved in the thing, and that entire zoning was created to allow the flexibility as a community grows. But this was put together in cooperation with the community and the city. And in fact, it's a trust between the citizens and government. To imply that you could, in this particular circumstance, change a fundamental definition in this document without informing the rest of the city, I just can't imagine why you would contemplate that. It just seems that that would be an outrageous overreach for even the council to decide. I recognize that you recommend, but to recommend something that you know is egregious would not be in your best interest. You've already put out a quote for a new future land use map, a new comprehensive plan. The city is already in the process of updating this. Why not tap the brakes until this is done? And let the citizens of the community say whether they want 1 acre residential. And if they do, well then this is a perfect opportunity for that to be implemented. But until that happens, we're putting the cart before the horse. In fact, the comprehensive plan clearly states that the proper procedure to do this is that the applicant should bring before the city council first the request to change the future land use map, and if it is amended, it doesn't say that you can do this continuously. It doesn't say you can't. But the impression in number 12 on page 5.2 is that there will be a steady, measured process with which the community will be involved in changes to the comprehensive plan. Not a notice that's between just a very small percentage of the people in the EJT. That doesn't make sense. The citizens in the area would like the minimum to be 1.5 acres. We would like the size of the houses to conform to the neighborhood, roughly 3,000 square feet. We're really concerned that Sinks Road can't possibly handle the construction traffic, and though I know city planners use their own methodology to determine how many trips can be useful on a 2-lane road, that's not a 2-lane road that's connected at both ends to a heavy trafficked road. 205 will not allow this kind of quantity to get out onto 205 without a light.
I'm going to have to ask you to wrap up, sir, but go ahead and finish.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
In summary, let me just say this. We're not trying to oppose growth. We're just asking you to pump the brakes a little bit and do it in the right order. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Up next, I had Mr. Chris Burleson, but I believe you already spoke.
Yeah, I already spoke.
Okay.
Thank you.
Vanessa, is it Friedenberg? I apologize if I butchered your last name.
Hello, I'm Vanessa Freidenberg. I live on 567 Savannah Hill Lane. In addition to what my neighbors have said, I would like to add that when my husband and I were choosing a place to live, to relocate from Atlanta, Georgia, we considered many states because of his job ability of living in any state pretty much that he wanted. And we zoomed down Texas, specifically the city of McLendon-Chisholm, for what it is today. It's a rural area where kids can roam free, they have a good education, and that's what we want. If we want to live in a big city, we could have lived in Frisco, in Plano, and many other areas that provide that type of living. And I feel that with this 1 acre lot, this is taking our ability to sustain the type of life that we chose and the reason that we moved here for. We moved here so our kids could have a good education. For an instance, my daughter right now, during COVID, in her class, there are 27 students. Her teacher's overwhelmed. And I have a really hard time seeing how you would have this many people moving to the city and you'll be able to keep the school at the same level that it has operated so far. So we're looking for my daughter possibly not having the education that when we moved here, that's what we're looking for. That's what we bought. That's what was involved in the price of the home. So now if I go turn around and sell my house, I no longer have that same promise to the next owner that this family will have this type of education. Also, the many people that will be traveling on Pullen Road, I don't know if you guys have ever tried to pull out of that road. It's very dangerous. Miss Cynthia just last week witnessed a very tragic car crash, which she doesn't even know if the people survived. It's very dangerous. So this is going to impact greatly our day-to-day life, the type of education that my daughter has. And if I decide to pack and move, it's still going to impact what I can get for my house, because what I bought 5 years ago is not what I have to sell today. I also like to make a comment that I have, since I moved to this house 5 years ago, there's a wood cabinetry shop behind my house, which I have come to the city hall for about a year and complained about that. After a whole year of talking about that situation ended up in nothing. So this is one house that the city was not able to handle. Now we talk about adding 133 homes. So if the city was not able to handle that one dispute with just one neighbor, how does the city plan to take care of 133 extra homes? As you can see, what I bought 5 years ago is not what I have today. Yet I'm so involved in the community and my assets is tied to my house, so I don't have the ability to just pack up and move. So I'd like for you to consider what kind of city McLendon-Chisholm wants to be. We moved here because we want a good family life. For those people who seek to live in a small lot, there are plenty of options for them. But for us, what options do we have? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Up next, I have Mr. Ron Pinkerton.
Hello, my name is Ron Pinkerton, and I'm speaking in opposition to the resolution.
Can you speak your address just for the record, please?
My address is 484 Savannah Hill Lane.
Thank you.
Okay, so I really agree with everything else that my counterparts have said. I'd just like to kind of reiterate, my property backs up next to the development. And 5 years ago, we moved from the east side of Rockwall over to this side, specifically to get out of the area where the homes were very congested on really small lots. And so now the concern for us is that with the 1 acre lots butting up directly to our property, I'm kind of have the same thing that I moved away from. Okay, so that's a real concern for us. The second thing is that many homes and the stress and pressure that it puts on your ability to support that with all of your services here in McLendon-Chisholm, such as the utilities, the water, the roads, the maintenance of the highways, Pullen Road, 205. So, even our own street, with that much traffic on the street of Pullen Road, inadvertently someone could pull down our road in Savannah Hill Lane. We let our kids play everywhere. So we have to be concerned about that as well. So we're not against development, I'm for progress. Progress is good, okay? It's either change or die, but we are for that, but we would like to see this be thought out more, okay? So, thank you very much.
Thank you. Next is Erica Hilton.
My name is Erica Hilton. I live at 126 Savannah Hill Lane. Just like Peter said, I'm also in favor of growth. You know, we could graduate from DSL to a better internet service. But as a mother and as a taxpayer, what I'm asking for is for this growth to happen with the appropriate steps to make the growth make sense and be less painful for the people who already live in the area. My husband and I literally shopped for our home for 8 years. Our realtor earned every dollar she got. And I was talking with Vanessa earlier today, and we started counting the kids just at Sinks and Pullen Road, and there are 16 kids right at that intersection. The Pullen girls, my daughter, they're everywhere. And people are already driving 40, 50, 60, 70 miles an hour down Pullen Road. And now you're going to add another 133 homes with probably double the cars. So safety is a big concern for me as a mother. Trying to get out on 205 from Pullen Road is next to impossible. So what I'm asking is that instead of rushing into this, why not take a step back and put things into place that helps keep our families safe before we add more families to the challenges that we already have. So Pullen Road is unsafe. Pulling out onto 205 is unsafe. I already said our internet's horrible. The water pressure in the summer is always a problem. So is it going to be able to handle the extra homes? Is our water going to be even worse? We had a boil water notice this past summer because the pressure went down, so we couldn't drink the water, and so that needs to be addressed. I know these guys are supposed to be working on a plan, engineering it to make sure that happens, but we'd like to see that fixed before you add all these homes and further damage our water pressure, the traffic, the safety for the kids, the schools. The schools are fantastic. I have never done so much homework in my life because the teachers are amazing and the schools are amazing, but if you overload these schools, I think I heard a rumor that there are new schools that are in the works, but if you overload the schools, then their quality of education is going to go down and the teachers are going to just be stressed out. So, and then another concern is property value. We've driven through a couple of the neighborhoods that Altura has built, and they are beautiful homes. But to Peter's point and to Chris's point, you know, if we spread these homes out, if they're on 1.5 acres instead of 1 acre, and you have just fewer residents, fewer cars, maintain the beauty of the urban area that we live in, suburban area, I suppose, then that would be more attractive to the folks that are already established in the community. And then, this is funny, my 9-year-old daughter also asked, could you just please put a park back there instead of all those houses? So I told her I'd let you guys know that. So, thank you guys so much.
Thank you. Next I have Mark Kippett.
Thank you. Mark Kippett, 31 Fireside Drive, McLendon-Chisholm. So I want to come at this a little differently. I don't have an opinion on whether this development should move forward at 1.5 acres or 1 acre. I do, having been involved in development of comprehensive plan when it was written, I do know where the 1.5 acres came from, and I would challenge anybody to explain the difference between 1 acre and 1.5 acres to me. I live on 2.5 acres, so clearly lots of different varieties in McLendon-Chisholm, and we already have a well-developed community, Quail Creek, that is on acre lots. So I guess I understand the comprehensive plan, but I don't necessarily understand the strict letter of the law. I want to talk a little bit about compliance with Texas state code, because I assume most of the folks that talk tonight understand that this is really also a county issue. If the city doesn't accept this and it gets incorporated, it does not get incorporated, it could be developed, or part of it could be developed in the county under the county's subdivision standards that they just passed, which my understanding is there would be zero resistance from the county to develop 1 acre lots.
Right,
We don't have any say on that.
on the ETJ portion.
So when I look at it, it's really the comprehensive plan there is to guide the guidance or guide how the city is going to be developed. And then the last thing I think that's running around in my head is really about fairness. And I want to talk a little bit about tough love, and this is not going to be a popular comment that I'm about to make in this room. I've heard a lot about who's paying taxes, but I want to remind my good neighbors that live on Savannah Hill that you're not in the city and you don't pay city taxes. You are in Fire District 22 and gain the full benefit of the professional services that are provided by the city's fire department. That has direct impact on your property values, to include your insurance rates. And the city has done that. In general, folks in the city have not been concerned about supporting the folks in the unincorporated areas. But I will say that is also coming to an end. A lot of people are unhappy that there are now going to be more rooftops in the unincorporated area potentially than there are in the city, which means the city's carrying the burden of that fire district. Needs to be worked with the county, but I would be fully supportive of everybody that just spoke that lives on Savannah Hill if you asked to be incorporated into the city and paid your fair share towards those city services. That would be fair. That would be equitable. But to come in here and lecture about the city's comprehensive plan and what the city's citizens of McLendon-Chisholm want from folks who are not citizens creates a disconnect in my mind. Because I want to be a good neighbor with the folks that are in the unincorporated areas. I really do. But I have a hard time getting past the point of the roughly $200 a year that most of the citizens in McLendon-Chisholm pay in their property taxes to support those fire department. And the contribution made by the county, while important, is certainly not equitable. And it's derived from sales taxes, which have nothing to do with property. So I guess that's where I'm coming from. The city's going to grow. People who have agricultural land now have every right in the world to develop that land appropriately in compliance with the city's comprehensive plan, city ordinance. There's nothing that stops them from doing it. It's zoned agricultural. You know, I wish I had all the money in the world and I could buy all that land and maintain it in its agricultural standing. But that is not the reality of the economy we live in. Which is why homes and subdivisions like the one I live in used to be agricultural land. Now it is not.
Mr. Kippett, I'm going to have to ask you to wrap up.
I'm sorry?
You're at your 5 minutes. I'm going to ask you to wrap
Yeah,
up.
I realize I'm at the end. I'm going on. But I just want to thank you, and I want to thank everybody that's on the Planning and Zoning Commission for their hard work. It's a tough job. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kippett. Okay. Is there anyone else from the public that did not, did you get anybody else over there? Okay. Ryan, I want to give you a chance to speak. Sorry, Ryan Joyce, I want to give you a chance to speak while we still are under the public hearing.
Thank you very much, Planning and Zoning Commission, Madam Chairman. My name is Ryan Joyce, 1189 Waters Edge Drive in Rockwall, Texas. I have a brief presentation. Is that, Lisa, is that uploaded anywhere? Or? Maybe? No? From the last time.
Certainly.
I have some other topics to address.
You want to do that while he...
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So first of all, I do want to thank the residents of Savannah Hill. We had a very spirited meeting a couple of weeks ago. It was a very civil meeting. They were very cordial. Hopefully I was cordial to them, and they enjoyed the bundt cakes that we brought over. So buntinis, I think they're called. I first off want to lead off that, it seems like a lot of the pressure against this development is the surrounding infrastructure and how that is applicable to the city. The infrastructure that all these residents use for ingress and egress and to make their ways to other areas, to go out to eat, to go out to dine, those are all under the jurisdiction of both TxDOT and the county. Both of these organizations are reactive organizations. They do not proactively go out and say, hey, there's going to be some new houses here, let's improve this road. Unfortunately, with both those organizations, you have to have the growth there first before the roads become improved. So we feel like with this development, there will be improvements to the roads. There will be improvements to the infrastructure. AT&T, again, is another reactive organization. Better service is coming to the community, but it needs rooftops to get there. The comprehensive plan speaks a lot about commercial development, and commercial development is coming, but you need the rooftops to get there. I also heard some concerns about the Rockwall ISD. For those that don't know, I am a member of the Rockwall County community. I do live in Caruth Lakes in North Rockwall with my wife and 3 children, all of who are in Rockwall ISD. They all attend Ham Elementary, wonderful new school. I've been fortunate enough to serve on the Rockwall Leadership Council for the 2020-2021 school year, which unfortunately was construed quite a bit because of COVID, but growth to the schools is coming, and that comes from tax dollars. The ISD is currently building its 16th elementary school here in the district. In addition to that, future plans call for additional middle schools to help eliminate some of the strain on the current elementary school system. Currently, elementary schools run K through 6th grade. There are talks about transitioning 6th grade up to middle school with the addition of a new middle school, so that's coming as well. Additionally, a 3rd high school or freshman campus is planned in the intermediate future. So the growth is coming, and it's interesting what you can learn off of Wikipedia sometimes as well, which you may not always want to trust Wikipedia, but a lot of this information is also included in the comprehensive plan. But the city of McLendon-Chisholm was actually born out of growth. The city of McLendon, founded by P.A. McLendon, and the city of Chisholm, which was founded by Parson Chisholm and his brother Frank Chisholm. Those two communities came together in 1969 to form McLendon-Chisholm. The 1980 census showed a population of McLendon-Chisholm of 403 people, with an increase of 60% in 1990 to 646 people. Again, in the 2000 census, an increase of 41% to 914, an increase of 50% in 2010, an increase of 151% in the 2020 census, with that data being extrapolated in May of this year. And so the growth is coming to McLendon-Chisholm. now's a great time to. All right, sounds great. All right, here we go. So our objective with this community is to create an estate-style option for new residents in McLendon-Chisholm while enhancing the beauty of the community and a development that conforms to several aspects of the city's comprehensive plan while balancing current market trends and demand. So the comprehensive plan does establish 1.5 acre lots. There's also a note in the comprehensive plan that allows for adjustments based on market demand. Believe me, I would enjoy to put 50-foot and 40-foot lots all throughout anywhere that I can. Some areas the market demands that, but some areas the market doesn't. This is one of those communities where the market doesn't necessarily demand that. With COVID, you're seeing quite a bit of residents moving out of Dallas County, and actually in the past 18 months, the majority of the people that have moved into Rockwall County have come from what would normally be considered the suburbs: Dallas County, Collin County, Tarrant County. Those heavily populated areas, people are moving out of those areas for a variety of reasons. One, they're realizing that they no longer have to sit in an office or a cubicle all day, every day of the week. Two, their employers are a lot more willing to let them work from home. And three, with the introduction of COVID, it has allowed people to spend more time at home with their families. And people don't want to be on 50-foot lots. If they can, they'd like to be on 1 acre lots, even 2 acre lots in certain situations. Every development that we do is almost indicative of a Rubik's Cube. How do we make all the portions fit together, and how do we combine everything together in order to make the development feasible and beneficial to not only the landowners, but also to the home builder and the community that it resides in. Oh, you can go ahead and about 3 or 4 forward. There, that's a good one right there. So this particular slide right here shows just a little bit better pictorial of how the zoning of the property is. Currently, the area in green is located within the city limits of McLendon-Chisholm. The area in yellow is located inside the extraterritorial jurisdiction, also located within the county. And you can see, if you would consider this plan to be facing north, to the northeast is where the Savannah Hill development is located at. If we could, the next slide, please. And so this slide here, you can see the property outlined in red, and it does show the future land use map as it sits currently, with a portion of the property located inside the city limits highlighted in light yellow, and then the gray portion being inside the extraterritorial jurisdiction. Next slide, please. So, and I made a mistake in sending this presentation over. There's actually been a slight change to the layout of this development with a reduction in the number of lots that we'd like to request. We'd like to request 132 residential lots. And if I may approach the commission. So as you can see from the handout, we've done a few things to our layout in order to help eliminate some of the concerns that the Savannah Hill residents have. Mr. Coker, these changes were made prior to meeting with Savannah Hill, and I apologize for my mistake in the confusion of the layout. Sinks Road, as it sits now, sits on the city's thoroughfare map as a two-lane minor collector road. We have taken that road inside of the development and pulled it off of the backyards of the residents of Savannah Hill. In addition, going forward from where our property ends up to Pullen Road, that area is intended to be blocked off as a fire apparatus access area only. It will not be open to traffic until the city decides that they'd like to open it to traffic. In order to conform to the thoroughfare plan, there is some additional right-of-way that needs to be acquired there. But we are dedicating the right-of-way and the access through Sinks Road to the city as part of this development. This does reduce the overall lots to 132 lots as opposed to the 134 lots. The comprehensive plan calls out for approximately 0.667 units per acre, which is 1 divided by 1.5. This particular development has 0.80 units per acre, so we're extremely close to what the city is asking for in the comprehensive plan. We could have the next slide, please. These are intended to be second and third time move-up homes by Altura with a typical lot size of 125 feet by 350 feet. We are asking or providing to the city architecturally upgraded garage doors, as well as a minimum square footage on the homes of 2,200 square feet. Next slide, please. And these are just some of the setbacks that we'd be proposing. 50-foot front yard setbacks, 15-foot side yard setbacks, and 80% masonry requirement. And I know it was a concern of one of the residents about the water. We have been in contact with RCH Water, and we are required to go through their engineering process in order to ensure that they have the capacity to serve us for the development. That is done through their engineers. It's not our engineers telling them that they can service. It's their engineers telling us we can service you, or here are the improvements that are required to be serviced. Those applications have been made with RCH, and we are working through that process with them. So that water is supplied by an entity that is not controlled by the city, but they are definitely aware of the concerns that there may be in as far as the quality of the water goes or the availability of water goes. Next slide, please. So these are just some of the representative product photos that Altura Homes builds. You can see here they build a very lovely home. While our minimum square footage is 2,200 square feet, that does allow for some empty nesters to possibly have a smaller one-story home. These homes are probably going to average in the 3,000 to 3,500 square foot range. As you can see from the pictures, next slide, please. They do build a very quality home. It is 80% masonry, so that's stone or brick on the exterior of the home. Next slide, please. And as you can tell from the interior finish outs as well, next slide, please. They do a very good job and a very quality job with the interior of their homes. Next slide, please. And so we do have our primary entry coming off of Pullen Road, as you can see from the layout in front of you. We did preserve the two ponds that are located along Pullen Road to provide a very rural country feel to the entry into this development. As you turn in from Pullen Road, you have one pond off to your left, and then you're actually facing another pond. These are two existing ponds that will remain. The vegetation areas in this particular location will be cleaned up, underbrush cleaned out, so it is almost like an open park space, place for kids to go fishing. These are existing established ponds. So this will be a great amenity not only to the city but also to the surrounding residents. Next slide, please. So I just want to conclude with a few things. There's been some recent changes in the Texas state ordinances or Texas state laws that prohibit municipalities from dictating what type of building materials can be utilized when constructing homes, as long as they conform to the lot zoning. And I feel like we're offering a lot more than what could be built out here. Several of the Savannah Hill residents have asked, what about larger lots? Larger lots is possible, but with larger lots comes the reduction in other items surrounding the homes. Like I said earlier, this is just a Rubik's Cube, so how do all the pieces fit together? And in order to provide a quality product, that is going to be long-lasting, 1 acre lots is much more feasible in order for us to do that. So quality begets quality. Bringing this high-quality builder in development into the city is only going to provide an anchor point and a model for future growth within the city. With our conservative estimates, we anticipate this is going to be an additional $67 million in ad valorem tax value to the city. And the city is growing as much as it can right now. The beautiful City Hall building was completed recently. There's a new building going up right next door. These are much needed dollars that the city could utilize for expanding future services. This equates to almost about $150,000 worth of straight revenue to the city based upon your current tax rates. We are dedicating right-of-way for Sinks Road for the thoroughfare plan, as well as constructing a very large portion of the Sinks Road thoroughfare plan. And as the property to our south develops, that even only further would allow Sinks Road to expand further to the south, providing additional access onto 550 and additional routes for people to utilize. And I know that the comprehensive plan states that the city is trying to increase commercial development in specified areas. Commercial development only follows residential development. We understand that Brookshire's owns a site here in town. Hopefully they'll build here one day, but they have to have a supporting base to support the infrastructure that they put in and the financial investment that they would make in the community. And so, again, I'll revert back to the Rubik's Cube. How do we best do that, and how do we best work within the parameters that we have in order to accomplish something that's not only beneficial to the city, but also beneficial to the additional residents? And so we feel like in doing 1 acre lots, this is very close to what the comprehensive plan states, but it's not so far reached out there that we're not trying to do 40 and 50 foot lots and cram a whole bunch of houses onto this property. We feel like we're doing what's best for the property, what's best for the landowners, and what's best for the city. With that, I thank you for your time, and I'd be more than happy to answer any questions.
Okay. With that, we will I'll close the first public hearing. I still need to open the second public hearing, right?
Madam Chair, if you'd let me add a couple of things, because I have a couple of answers to some questions that I heard that might help you when it comes time for deliberation. You want to hear those now, or do you want to wait until you get ready to consider the...
We can hear them now. That's fine.
One of the things that I asked to do when this came through was to determine what the traffic impacts would be. And Pullen Road is designated as a 2-lane collector, which it is today. It's got big service. And in the concept plan, in the thoroughfare plan portion of it, we tell you based on the IT equipment that roadway can handle 2,000 trips in 24 hours. That's kind of... Then we have to take a look at the potential trips that this subdivision at 134 lots would have created. And based on the 10th edition, which is the most current edition of the IT equipment, the average single-family home generates 0.99 trips in the PM peak hour. PM peak hour from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. So over that 3 hours, 99 trips generates 133 trips in that 3-hour period. So that's in the PM peak, those are the trips that are basically coming back to the homes in the evening. If you make that correlation to the morning, those same number of trips are going out for about a 3-hour period from 6 to 9. determining whether they're turning right or left, that's distributed over the two directions that you can go. You go to 550, or you go back to 205. That 134 homes over a 24-hour period generates just over 2,400 trips in the entire 24-hour period. So the traffic demand generated by the subdivision of this size or smaller is not going to, irrespective of, I don't live there, but it's not going to statistically overtax the transportation system as it exists today. Okay? Second thing is that the geography that the first public hearing is about is the geography for the comprehensive plan unit and the future land use map plan unit. That geography does not change. And the second public hearing is consideration of the actual zoning. And what we want to do is take the plan that Mr. Joyce brought, we just now, that would be the concept plan that we consider.
So we do need to open a second public hearing because there were two items on the agenda. So I will open a second public hearing to consider the request for a zoning change on 164.591 acres of land located within the McLendon-Chisholm ETJ, with the remainder located within the city limits, generally located at the southwest corner of the intersection of Pullen and Sinks Road, from agricultural zoning to planned development district zoning that provides for a residential development with lot sizes not less than 1 acre in size. Now, this is essentially the same item we just talked about, so I don't know.
Well, and Madam Chair, let me get. The minimum lot size in the Clinton system and now in the county for on-site sanitary sewer is 1 acre.
Right.
So irrespective of whether they're 1 acre, 1.5 acres, or 2.5 acres, the minimum lot size in the city and in the county is 1 acre. So I think that Mr. Tippett made a comment earlier that if you only did that portion that was in the county, 90 acres, you have 1 acre lots today without property lots. So this provides an opportunity at some rate for us to have some regulatory oversight. Second thing, before we get into the public hearing, so that everybody knows, this is a multi-step process. If the Planning and Zoning Commission were to recommend approval of the comprehensive plan unit and the zoning change that we requested, it's still up to the council to consider that, and you'll have the opportunity to have your voices heard as well. If that's not, that's just the beginning. Then you have to subdivide the property. Right. You have to make it comply with all the regulations. And for instance, the water supply company said that they didn't have capacity and it would take some time to get capacity. That would delay the development because there are some specific standards that you have to get past the conformity. And not the least of which is the fire department access and the ability for the fire department to provide emergency services, not the least of which is to fight fire. So fire flow, which is a big deal. Now, the fire department is part of the city of McLendon-Chisholm. The chief is very serious about making sure that those citizens are protected better in the fires.
Mr. Coker, so, if I hear you correctly, you're saying that even if everybody blessed this, it may take some time to actually develop if they can't meet the fire and the water and the things that you're talking about now. But it would still remain that if we blessed this, we would be doing so by amending the comprehensive plan and allowing 1 acre development everywhere instead of 1.5 acre development, and that would not change.
If you were to, if the commission were to recommend a modification of the comprehensive plan that says that large lot residential 1 acre, then that changes that standard citywide. But it does not change zoning.
Right.
Because if the zoning on the property is ag, well, ag requires 2.5 acres per household. If it's, let's say, 2.5, it requires 2.5 acres. If it's let's say 1.5, it requires 1.5 acres. We don't have a zoning district today, in the absence of the one you're about to consider, that establishes a 1 acre zoning district. Now, there are some planned development districts out there that have different standards. They were adopted prior to the adoption of the current comprehensive plan. Okay?
So if,
Comprehensive plan, you can
okay.
adopt. The comprehensive plan anticipates that people who want to change the rules are going to first ask the council to change the comprehensive plan. And then, I think this goes back to the comment that Mark made. It goes back to the council. If the council says no on the change of the comprehensive plan, and everything else is academic, nothing happens. If the council says yes, then it makes sense for the applicant who has requested that change to deposit the request that they have. And that's this plan development district that allows for 134 dwelling units on a minimum 1 acre lot size. And that is consistent. One other thing, the zoning ordinance for the city anticipates and actually subscribes to the thought that permanent zoning will be the zoning of choice when property is annexed. And there is no designation at the point in time that comes from the planning and zoning commission about the kind of zoning that should be there. Then it defaults to ag zoning. That's called a temporary zoning district. And it stays in that zoning district until such time as either the comprehensive plan is changed, so that the different size could be larger, could be smaller, is approved by the council. So there you go.
Yeah.
Answer your question?
Yes.
I think your real question is if the commission recommends that the council agrees that the minimum lot size in the city is going to be 1 acre, that applies citywide. But it does not change any zoning. So somebody would have zoning that requires 1.5 acres, and we're going to get 1 acre. Well, that's going to change the control use plan and the comprehensive plan. And they would have to change the zoning to something that allows that lot size. Because that's,
So each development would have to come back and say, well, we're 1.5, but you changed the comprehensive plan, so now I have to change the zoning for my development and for my development and for my development.
that's correct.
Okay.
And while that sounds repetitive, that's really good because it provides the opportunity for the appointed officials and then the elected officials to do what they think the citizens anticipate that they should be doing. Now, I don't get to vote. That's one of the beauties of being a meeting. I don't have to vote, but I do make recommendations to you. And in this case, on most of these cases, I recommend approval.
Yeah, I opened a public hearing, so before we get too deep into discussion, so do we have any additional speakers for the second public hearing? No. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing. And now we'll move on to item 7.1, which is for the committee to consider recommendation to the city council to either approve or deny the request for amending the future land use map of the comprehensive plan to change the land use designation from rural residential to a new classification to be known as low-density residential for the 164.591 acre tract of land generally located at the southwest corner of Pullen Road and Sinks Road, approximately 90.1 acres more or less, are located within the McLendon-Chisholm ETJ, and with the remainder located within the city limits. And as we know, that also comes with a change to the goal of the land use, or of the comprehensive plan. So, does anyone want to talk? Anyone have a?
Well, I have stuff to say.
I'm sure you do.
I've been taking notes, so, all right. I've been listening to what you have to say. So Mr. Burleson's point, wherever you went, there you are, reading all of those points of the comprehensive plan, I want you to know that before I moved here almost 3 years ago now, I read those too. And you pointed out the grid system that we have, which is not really what our comprehensive plan is anticipating. And to Vanessa's point, I also looked at the rural character before I moved here. And to Mr. Barter's point, is there really an urgent need for denser housing in McLendon-Chisholm when there's other places that people could move in the city? And his further point, whether the citizens even realize that a change in the comprehensive plan would affect the whole city and not just this development. And I would submit that as someone who's on the Planning and Zoning Commission, that I didn't realize that until I started looking into this myself. Mr. Pinkerton made the point that he moved away from a denser area, not too far from here, to a more rural area. I did the same thing. One thing that I did was I moved into a fully developed neighborhood. So I already knew who my neighbors were, with the exception of Klutz Farm, which I hope never gets developed because it's beautiful and it's part of what I love to look at, and it's probably going to happen. But, I tried to go somewhere that I knew that I was going to be spread out. I have questions on, water and traffic, and maybe planning and zoning aren't the people that decide that, and it's the city council. But even if traffic and water and all of that was dealt with, I would like to say that I'm not a huge fan of 1 acre lots. I feel to me, it's a bait and switch of what I moved here for. I moved out of a very dense place, developed. And if we want 1 acre lots, Mr. Kippett came up, and I know and respect Mark, I know we need to think about economic development. And I know these people are in the ETJ and not the citizens, but I share their concerns. And so for me to be on the planning and zoning, and me to be thinking, as Mr. Coker pointed out, what do I anticipate the citizens of McLendon-Chisholm would want us to do, I would submit that I don't know the answer to that question. I know how I feel. I know how they feel who aren't citizens of the city. Someone also brought up the point that we're looking at amending our comprehensive plan. We talked about having a survey and getting community input. And I feel as though we're talking about, well, obviously, we're talking about more than just this development, and I think I need to hear from more than just these people. The difference between an acre and acre half is half an acre, respectfully. Where I live, I've got an acre and a half plus. My parents back up to me in another subdivision that's got 4,000 square foot houses on 1 acre lots, and it's almost a little bit funny. They just look super huge. And I don't feel comfortable rubber stamping this development and then affecting the very character of the city that we all live in without hearing from a whole lot more people. Mr. Joyce talked about a model of future growth, and that's what I'm afraid of, is setting a model for future growth. Rooftops are good for our property tax, but it's really only one element of our budget. Commercial development, I think, would be an even bigger help to our tax base. And while it's true, we don't have enough rooftops for a Trader Joe's, and I really want one, and we need to have more people. I'm really sitting at the point where I don't know what the citizens want us to do, because I don't feel like we've heard from enough of them. Maybe the people on Savannah Hill Lane could say, yes, if it's going to make a difference, we'll let ourselves be annexed into the city. And maybe Mr. Joyce can say, let's look at an acre and a half with more windy streets that aren't so gridded out. But I feel like, and Mr. Coker even brought up that, 10,000 trips on Pullen Lane, and it's only 133. Well, 133 is a lot less than 10,000, but when you're sitting at the light and only 5 cars are getting through, there's a difference if you're sitting in a line full of 15 people or a line full of 150 people. severely impact your quality of life. So for me, as an individual, I hear their concerns. And for me, as somebody on planning and zoning, I don't feel like I have enough input to do something that's going to so widely affect the city, especially when we're contemplating changing the comprehensive plan and getting all of that citizen input that we need. So that's where I stand on what I've heard tonight.
Before I call on anyone else, can I ask you a question? I guess I can, I'm Chairman. Why, we've made changes to the land use map before without changing the goals of the comprehensive plan. Why are we doing that this time?
Because the request was for us to actually change the definition of low-density residential from a minimum lot size of 1.5 acre to 1 acre.
So could we have, just to put all options on the table, would we have an option if we wanted to just change the future land use of this area to something else? Or do we have to change the actual goal for the whole city? I mean, do we have any other options on the table if we wanted to?
I think I understand the question. Yeah. And we do not have a 1 acre zoning district that's available in the city.
Okay.
And because state law says that zoning shall, not may, shall comply with the comprehensive plan, in order to do that, were you interested, you would recommend that you change the definition, which is the text of the goal and that policy statement, to go from 1.5 acres to 1 acre, and that would change the definition. Yes, it's a citywide definition change, because the comp plan, you could have comp plan that had separate sections for different geographies in the city, but we don't have that. We have a plan that applies citywide. So if you change a goal or a policy that has citywide implications, then you've changed it for the whole city. And I don't see an option in this case to do it any other way.
Okay.
I mean, if you were to say, change the future land use map to allow for 1 acre here.
Right.
Well, how would I get there? Because I don't have any.
What's your job?
I don't have any 1 acres.
No.
Yeah.
And not only that, but the comprehensive plan says that 1.5 acres is the minimum lot size for.
Agreed. Okay.
Okay.
That's what I just wanted to make, and then my other question is, I'm trying to pull it up on my phone, but it's too big. Do we have a copy of the schematic for State Highway 205? You don't have the roll plan? Okay. I'm just wondering what the plan is at Pullen Road for State Highway 205. But I'll continue to try to pull it up on my phone. It'll pull up eventually. Okay. All right. Yeah. Anyone else?
I do have one question. I wasn't quite sure when you talked about the county taking over some of, can you re-explain that part where if the zoning isn't changed or if we don't take charge of this land, how does the county come in and develop it?
Okay.
Can you
Well,
explain that part?
first of all, subdivision regulations in our extraterritorial jurisdiction, and that definition is the land that's not in the city, but it's a half a mile outside the city, with the exception of a couple of places like adjacent to Heath, because their city limits is right up against Rabbit Ridge, for instance. So within that area, we have an interlocal agreement with the county that we will do subdivisions. We'll enforce our subdivision regulations. Okay? But that only applies to the subdivision. It doesn't apply to the land uses. So if somebody wanted to come in with a chicken farm on the 90 acres, not the part that's in the city, but on the 90 acres that's not in the city, we could do the plat, but the land use we would not have any opportunity to regulate the land use. Land use being whether it's residential, commercial, industrial, that kind of thing. So somebody could come in and say, I've got a contract on 90 acres right there, and what I want to do is multifamily. I don't have any choice, and neither does the City Planning and Zoning Commission or the City Council, but if they submit a plat, a subdivision layout that complies with the regulations, we're obligated to say yes, even though we might not like a trailer park, for instance. Did I answer your question?
I completely agree with Sherry on being very intimately involved with redeveloping our comprehensive plan and the demand that we are asking for citizen comments is huge, because somebody asked what we want our city to look like. We're asking that same question, and it's not up for a small number. It is up to our entire community to help define that. So completely aligned with I completely understand the point of we have to have commercial growth. We cannot put the growth of our city on the backs of our homeowners, and that's what's happening right now. And we have to bring in commercial growth, and commercial growth will not come until we have rooftops. That is the world we live in. That's not controlled by the city of McLendon-Chisholm. That's broader than that. Retailers have to show that there is a core base of shoppers in order to invest in our community. So there's a constant battle, right? This projected residential site, I would appeal to the builder of, I do not think we are in compliance. Taking away the 1.5 to 1 acre, take that off the table. Just the grids, there's not enough open spaces. I have driven down Fulton Road. I do know the amount of traffic. I also totally agree with the amount of children. It's actually fantastic as a mom to see the kids outside and on their bikes and all of this interaction, and I think, oh my gosh, that's what we want. They're not just all inside, on their PlayStations or their iPhones. And, the proposal is the open spaces right on Fulton Road. And it's like, well, we're going to have the fishing pond, and it's going to be a broader attraction. But is it a safe attraction? Why don't we have space deeper within the community that's actually bringing people to the center of this neighborhood versus right on the outlier on the main road? I would question the builder on what's been proposed for us to consider. If we're making an exception to a plan that will now affect our entire city based singularly on feedback from this very small, although impactful, thank you all, group of residents, I have to say I'm not inclined to do it based off of what I'm seeing here. And that's not even talking about the lot size. I don't feel that this is representative of what our community demands. So those are questions I'm wrestling with. I can see it on both sides, but I'm really concerned that we are making decisions tonight for our city, and I don't even feel this represents what our community believes in. So those are concerns that I have just as a citizen of McLendon-Chisholm, much less part of a group that's making determinations for our city going forward.
Dan, do you have any further thoughts?
I've looked at the surveys that we've had over the past couple of years, and I think that the citizens of McLendon-Chisholm want is not really this. Certainly, I'm a proponent of growth. I'm not apt to consider changing from 1.5 to 1 acre, even though I live on 1 acre. 1 acre can be aesthetic, but it's difficult, and it certainly doesn't arise out of this plan. I have concerns about the frontage road. I have concerns about entry and exit. I have concerns about the infrastructure that's currently supporting this overall area in general. I've read the letters with these, and I understand the concerns of the people in the EPJ. Again, they're not residents, but certainly there's wise words coming out of that front. radical changes without more input from the citizens. The citizens of the City, I don't think they're supportive of this. There are property rights that the developer is representing of the owner, and that aspect I certainly recognize. McLendon-Chisholm will be enlarged population-wise, and it's coming, but I want something a little bit more thoughtful than what I'm seeing on paper currently. I have a question, Mr. Coker. 10,000 trips on Pulling Road in a 24-hour period. How do you come to that conclusion? How is that derived?
The International Transportation Engineers Manual that generates, this is the 10th edition, it generates the number of trips predicated on the roadway surface, the roadway width, and the number of lanes. And so it's, this one gives us the EVPM number of trips, and then gives us the total trips for the 134 houses over a 24-hour period on that road to manage, in addition to the total number of trips that segment between 550, let's say, and 205 could handle in a 24-hour period.
So it's 10,000, with the issue of this community, 2,400 would take a bite of that 10,000. What's current, do you have an idea of what's currently the traffic flow on that?
No, I don't. I actually did try to find some traffic counts that there hasn't been enough trip generation for 5 or 4 text spots that have, or even counties that have done the trip counts within the last 5 or 6 years.
The only apprehension I have about the way you drive the figures is those folks haven't seen the fall through that road. I mean, I drove down there today just to do a double check of it. I've only been down there once before, and my remembrance of it was quite bumpy and kind of, I'm glad I was keeping my eye on the road all the time because I didn't want to go off to the side. So, I mean, I would think that the whole road would have to be redone. Well, that I remember, so I didn't step on it when I came up to that little bit. But that being said, the whole road would have to be redone. I'm not an engineer.
Yeah. Yeah, just further, you know, I know what my personal opinion is, and then also as a member of this board, commission, you know, if the citizens of McLendon-Chisholm come in here and they say, you know what, we are so totally fine with this and get over it, I'd have to get over it if I'm going to represent them, but I haven't heard that. And so I'm willing to change my mind. I know what my personal opinion is, but I can't rubber stamp this without hearing a whole lot more from a whole lot more people.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I do want to caution, at least this board on, is that we are not approving or denying the plat.
Right.
I mean, that would come much later. What we're talking about tonight is the land use and what we want the future land use to say.
Yeah, and it's bigger than just
yeah,
this,
it's
and
a
that's my
higher
problem
level.
with it. Yep.
It's a higher level look. I think my main concern is, or concern isn't the right word. I think what this brings to my mind, though, is that we do need to, and we're doing it with the joint economic development and planning and zoning committee meetings, but we really, if we're taking another look at the comprehensive plan and what we're going to do, we need to expedite that. I mean, the development is coming to McLendon-Chisholm. We knew that. We've been talking about it in the economic development committee meetings. But it's very clear here that things are changing and things are happening, and we need to, I mean, I'm hearing it from this board, that you guys need to hear from a larger group of the community what they want. Because I tend to agree with Mr. Kippett. 1 acre versus 1.5 acre really doesn't make that much of a difference. It's more what you put on it and what you're seeing. But we need to hear that from the community, and we need to hear what the community and what the citizens of McLendon-Chisholm want, and we need to get this comprehensive plan updated, because as we know, it's kind of all over the place, and the zoning doesn't match the land use plan, and we need to get that hashed out and figured out. And that's my biggest concern sitting here, is we do this too often, where we don't have, clear direction from what the citizens want. So, does anybody have anything else, or are you guys ready to make a motion? I need either a motion to recommend approval or recommend denial of the ordinance that's proposed to change the future land use map and comprehensive plan.
That- Two motions.
That would be one motion for 7.1, and then you have a second motion for 7.2.
And Mr. Coker, just to be transparent, our recommendation, whether it's to recommend or deny, is a recommendation only, and the city council is still free to do what it thinks is in the best interest of the city. Is that right? Okay.
In this case, you're a recommending body, and I'm going to tell you, if the council considers your recommendation serious, very serious.
Well, Madam Chairperson, I would move to deny the request for amendment to future land use map of the comprehensive plan to change the land use designation from rural residential to a new classification to be known as low density residential. For 364.591 acre tract of land located generally at the southwest corner of Ford Road and Since Road, approximately 90 acres more or less are located within McLendon-Chisholm ETJ, with the remainder located within the city limits.
Can I get a second? Can I ask a question before we do this? How, if this gets approved, if we approve this and then it goes to council and they approve it, and then we change the comprehensive plan, how long does our, because I know there's some stipulations as to how long it is before they can come back with another proposal.
Generally, it really doesn't apply to the comprehensive plan, but the zoning changes, if the denial is, let's assume you recommend denial, and the council agrees with the plan, that's a denial that, unless the council specifically says that it's a denial without prejudice, then it requires a minimum of a year before they can come back with another request. Not necessarily on the comp plan, but on the zoning side.
But they could grant it without prejudice and allow them to come back sooner than a year.
And I'm just concerned if we end up changing the comprehensive plan once we've heard from the city, and that changes everything. I just don't want to do a denial that we shouldn't have done. You understand what I'm saying?
Right. If the city comes back and
So
says,
can we recommend denial without prejudice on the zoning, if that's where we end up?
You have three options: approval, actually four options: approval with conditions, denial with prejudice, or denial without prejudice. And as I said, we are all a recommending body for the council, and we take what you recommend seriously.
then it's a denial without prejudice.
So
Makes
for
most
this
sense.
one, we don't need to, because
Right.
you're saying we can always come back and change this
The
later.
comp plan.
without-
So this is for the second one. Okay.
So that'd be for the zoning.
Sure.
This is the land use. All right, I have a motion to recommend denial for the future land use map and comprehensive plan changes, and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. Now, item 7.2, to consider recommendation to the city council for approval or denial of the request for zoning change on 164.591 acres of land. Approximately 9.1 acres more or less are located within the McLendon-Chisholm ETJ, with the remainder located within the city limits, generally located at the southwest corner of the intersection of Pullen Road and Sinks Road, from agricultural zoning to planned development district zoning that provides for a residential development with lot sizes not less than 1 acre in size. So do we have any further discussion on this before we make a motion? Are you guys ready to act?
No, I thank you for clarifying that, because I don't want to prejudice the developer. I do think growth is important. If the citizens come back and say they're fine with it, then we need to be able to move forward without restricting him any further. I'd like to make a motion to deny the request for zoning without prejudice.
Okay. Can I get a second?
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That carries. Okay. It's not on the agenda, but do we need to set a next meeting? Do you have anything?
The fact that it's not on the agenda keeps you from talking about it.
Okay.
Oh, okay, then never mind.
Okay, then I guess I'll make,
Then can I get a motion to adjourn?
I
That
move.
was for the- Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned.
It's a tough one. I just don't feel like I know enough. Oh.
What's that?
Well, you know what?
It is what it is.
I just feel like I need to hear from a lot more people.
No, I agree. No, I totally agree. I knew that coming up. I go to church with kids, so my daughter, and so they go to some. Good. No, it's not.
Yeah. No, I mean, I couldn't look my